The insult comic prides themselves on roasting anyone with no mercy, yet none can compete against the brutal honesty of a child's potty mouth. Linguists have long known of the infamous poo-poo face, butt head, and stinky, but between the 60s and 80s, they noticed something new. All the cool kids were calling their foolish friends Nimrod. Is this insult of biblical origin? Is it historic? Or is it something else entirely? Find out in this episode of Word of the Week, Nimrod. Nimrod is the name of a mighty hunter and warrior described as either building or ruling the land of Assyria. The name comes from the Hebrew Nimrod and may also appear as Nemrod or Nembrot in Romance languages or amongst Middle English speakers that epenthesized the b and devoiced the final consonant from a d to a t. Really, the etymology is pretty boring. It's the idiom that's interesting. Evident in the 80s playground slang, American English speakers use Nimrod to describe a clumsy fool. We have two hypotheses as to why this is the case. First, the target of the insult is unintelligible and thus considered a fool. Or two, the target of the insult is bad at hunting and is thus sarcastically compared to the hunter Nimrod. We will begin with the first hypothesis, yet to understand what unintelligibility has to do with Nimrod, we must review the story of Babel, which supposedly fell within the lands of Nimrod. The story goes that those in Babel wished to build a tower to heaven. Some extra-biblical traditions portray Nimrod as a tyrannical leader who put this effort into place in the first place. The big G-man didn't like this show of hubris, so he destroyed the towers, and then scattered the people of Babel and scrambled their languages to prevent them from conspiring again. An awfully intriguing tale for a linguist. This story is codified within Dante's Divine Comedy, in which the giant Nemrod cannot be understood. Thus, this hypothesis postulated by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary suggests that Nimrod refers to the unintelligibility of the fool that is targeted with this insult. However tidy it seems, this hypothesis doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. It requires children to care about the Divine Comedy, which nobody does. And if it were true, why do British English speakers still associate Nimrod with hunting, might, and tyranny, not foolishness? This insult is uniquely American. Now, the first hypothesis doesn't hold up well, but what about the second one? Could antagonists have sarcastically compared bad hunters to this mighty one? Very likely to some extent. In the 1831 play The Lion of the West, a caricature of Davy Crockett goes by the name Colonel Nimrod Wildfire. The name appears to borrow from this Judeo-Christian tradition. However, it could also be a sexist allusion to his quote-unquote hunt for a French woman throughout the play. Similarly, Great Magoo describes a simp as Nimrod. If you want to know more about the word simp, check out the video on that over here. They possibly call him Nimrod to call him a fool, or maybe to build a conceptual metaphor, again, of quote-unquote hunting for women. Both instances are really too unclear. The earliest vivid example of a sarcastic hunter Nimrod can be found in The Life of a Sportsman, written by Charles James Apperley under the pen name Nimrod. This was no accident. His foolish character often gets drunk enough to fall off of his horse, sealing this idea of a klutzy connotation that persists to this day. Yet none of these bits of slang really caught on until the 1940 cartoon A Wild Hare, in which Bugs Bunny calls Elmer Fudd a poor little Nimrod. Did Bugs allude to a century-old stock character, or sarcastically compare the clumsy Fudd to a mighty hunter? Either way, the joke went over the kids' heads, and they just assumed that Nimrod meant stupid. In conclusion, we don't really know which is right. I personally suspect Sportsman coined it and Looney Tunes popularized it amongst the youth. But there's also a third secret etymology, the penis one. That's because a slang dictionary from 1890 included Nimrod on a 2-page list of synonyms for penis, so yeah, this is probably a coincidence, but Nimrod does sound like a penis word, and 99% of slang has to do with penises anyway, so just comment what word you want next week. See ya.